Devices like a Universal Translator or a Babel fish are a standard part of science fiction. Without them, how would we ever be able to communicate with alien races? But could they actually ever exist? Well, one type of translator generally revolves around interpreting brainwaves and converting these into an audio output that either we or they could recognise. Whilst this makes a good plot device, with a scientific method it would be virtually impossible to pull off. If you could somehow scan someone's brain, presumably with their permission, locate the area in the brain that was responsible for speech, analyse the electrical impulses, work out which impulses were responsible for particular thoughts and ideas, then convert these into recognisable words, you would have your translator. However, there are a great many problems with this. Whilst getting a general impression of the brain's electrical activity is possible, it would be virtually impossible to track every signal going through it, the billions and billions of neurons in your brain, even if you limit it just to the speech centre. Then making sense of what those signals meant, which were thoughts, which were actually attempts at communication, then attempting to match those words with what was actually said. Eventually, after years and years of work, you might actually be able to get an idea what a single individual was attempting to say. The brain organisation of another individual would be so different you'd have to start again. That isn't even entering into the realms of how an alien brain might actually be arranged. So monitoring the brain directly is not going to work as a practical form of translation. If you did manage it, the process would probably make a better lie detector than it would a translator. However, that doesn't mean that a translator is totally out of the question, just that the method will have to be radically different. You need a fairly powerful computer program and a lot of time to be based around a more traditional approach to learning languages. The process of studying sounds that people make, linking them to actions, gestures, changes the environment, has been used whenever two human cultures meet for the first time. It's led to translation between two unrelated languages being possible. This method has even been used in studying animals like the prairie dog, where different calls have been linked to different animals, colours, shapes in their environment. There are, however, differences between basic animal calls and full communication with alien races. There are both advantages and problems with this. In general, the advantages are that primarily the alien species will be intelligent and will be wanting to communicate, and therefore will be likely to cooperate in finding a way to communicate. Direct contact as well might not be the only source of language information, since broadcasts similar to those like TV broadcasts are likely to be received before meeting any alien species. When you apply a large amount of computing power to this, it's certainly possible to come up with something to translate it into another language. Problems are, miscommunication is always possible. Just because, say, someone points to a horse and says a word, doesn't mean the word that they're saying is always horse. It could be transport, animal, food, or any other number of possible sources. Then there's the method of communication. It might not be verbal, but it might be body languages, sense, even luminescence may play a part in communication, and the frequency of sound may be out of the normal human range of hearing. In general, you'd have needed to listen to over 1 million different words before you can have a reasonable, accurate chance of communication. Even then, differences between language communications may still exist. For instance, I am sitting on a beach and I am sitting under a beech tree. Two very subtle differences that may not come through. What's certain is that no language program, no matter how complicated, will be able to extrapolate from existing words, might be able to critically predict and fill in a new word that you don't know. For an unknown word, languages are very complex. They don't stick to rules in the same way other formats do. The device also may need to utilise some form of noise cancelling to give you the translation without being drowned out by the original language. This type of translator, though, with all its limitations, will be possible in the future.